These Financial Group, our approach to wealth management is very comprehensive. We strive to help our clients achieve what matters most to them by not only helping them manage their money, but also by partnering with other experts such as attorneys, tax experts, and investment experts to help our clients with advanced planning areas such as making sure that their loved ones are taken care of, protecting against potential risks and liabilities, and mitigating taxes. As part of our comprehensive approach, we strive to bring information to our clients regarding relevant topics that can help them in their day-to-day lives. I'd like to introduce Sean Williamson to give an overview of today's important topic. Sean?
Thanks, Asaf. Welcome, everyone. So a common question that I get is, what is wealth management? As Asaf said, it is much more than asset location and portfolio management. It includes guidance in areas such as college planning, tax planning, estate planning, and even risk management, which is what we're going to focus on today. One of the biggest risks to your wealth and goals is the threat of identity theft and cybercrime. Human error accounts for 95% of all identity theft and loss of money and loss of sensitive information. Cybercriminals are fully aware of this, and they will use maximum leverage, not just against companies, but against individuals like all of us here today. You can't really stop a company from losing sensitive data, such as your social security number or even a credit card number, but there are steps that you can take to stop the threats targeted directly at you. These threats can impact your investments worse than a bad stock market ever could. So as your financial advisors, we want to help you achieve your life goals and help educate you on ways to make you and your family safer from threats like these. Today's webinar will help teach you how to minimize your risk and provide you with ways to identify how criminals are trying to gain access to both your information and your money. So our guest speaker today is Jared Hoffman, and he is a managing director at Focus Partners, formerly known as Buckingham Strategic Partners. Jared is based in St. Louis, Missouri, where he grew up, and then prior to joining Buckingham in 2004, he spent 12 years as a writer and an editor covering baseball for the Sporting News and then MLB.com. Part of Jared's role with Focus Partners includes educating firms and clients on best practices around cybersecurity with an emphasis on the behavioral aspect. He is also a member of InfraGard, which is a partnership between the FBI and the public-private sector created to share information and trends on cybercrime tactics and defenses. So with that, let's welcome Jared Hoffman.
Appreciate it, Sean. Great to be with everybody today. You should be seeing our title screen now. One of the things that you probably heard about today is we're really not going to be talking much about technology today. We're going to be really focused on behaviors because that is where we see a lot of this type of crime happening. So you're going to be receiving a follow-up from your advisory team. So while you're welcome to take notes, really you can just kind of sit back and soak a lot of this in. We're going to give you very simple, practical steps that anyone attending today can implement immediately or within the next 24 hours. You're not going to have to be going out and buying a lot of things. And the first thing I just want to talk about briefly is kind of some, I think, myths that are out there. A lot of times with technology, it can be overwhelming. It may feel confusing. And you may feel that when it comes to technology, I'll hear people say things like, I'm not very smart at this, or I'm dumb when it comes to this. I want you to take those words out of your vocabulary. And I'm going to prove that to you very quickly, that just because somebody is a lot younger and knows how to download apps and use them, or regardless of their age, being able to navigate the internet, don't confuse that with wisdom. And I've got some examples here for you to kind of just maybe give you a little more confidence that you're not so bad at this stuff when you think you are. Here's somebody that clearly knows how to go onto an app. They know how to post a picture. They know how to share information. But what they're sharing is they thought they could charge their phone in a microwave, okay? So remember, that is the bar we're setting here. Here's another person, again, they know how to go out and post information. They know how to navigate an internet site. They know how to download an app, but they don't understand when they bought the numbers 4 and 5 for the house, just because they set them on their table as 5 and 4 doesn't mean they bought the wrong numbers. And this might be my favorite one, fairly recent, is somebody who went on Facebook and asked, can you please move the solar eclipse to the weekend when kids are home? So again, these are what I call daywalkers that are out there amongst us. While they may know how to navigate the internet, don't assume just because you don't understand some of this technology that makes you any less smart than them. And in fact, by attending today, you've already shown that you've got a sense of the fact of wanting to understand this stuff. And I would say you're probably way smarter than you give yourself credit for when it comes to understanding how to interact with technology. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're not going to get into the guts of what belongs in these machines. We're going to be talking about how we interface with them, okay? So there's probably nobody attending today's webinar, I'm assuming, that is in this age group, right? Kids. But kids are actually the #1 target of identity thieves. And the reason for that is because kids have something that most US adults do not have. Kids have perfectly pristine credit because technically they don't even have credit. And therefore, ID thieves love when they can get a hold of a child's social security number, because a creditor, when they get that number on a credit application or through a website, they cannot look at that number and say, does this belong to a 7-month-old or a 77-year-old? The only thing that creditor can really do is confirm, is this a valid social security number? And if it is, and if it belongs to a child, that criminal is off to the races. Now, there are some things you can do to try to detect this. One of the biggest things, a warning sign that your child's identity has been stolen, is if they start getting credit card offers in the mail. It does even seem cute at first, like Billy is getting his first Visa card application at the age of 2, and you're going to take that, maybe chuckle, throw it away. But actually, that's a bad sign. That probably means someone has opened up credit in Billy's name, and now he's on other lists, and more people want him to start opening up credit. Another warning sign can be if you get a notice from the IRS that your child has already filed their tax return or is part of another tax return. Someone is using that social. You get a call, like a debt collection agency, and Susie owes $800,000, but Susie is 6 months old. Job verification calls. All those things to me are warning signs that something is amiss. So how do you try to even prevent this in the first place? So one thing that everyone on today's call is able to do is go ahead and run a credit report for your child. And when you do so, you can run it with all 3 agencies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. You should get absolutely nothing back. If you get a credit report and they have great credit, like their credit score is like 820, that's actually not good. They should not have a credit score, okay? So if you get anything back, they have a good score, a bad score, any score. That lets you know somebody's opened up credit in their name. Things that you can do to try to prevent this are things like such as, I would lock up that little blue card that you get, right? We all get that little blue card. If you put that on your wallet or your purse for your child and that your wallet or purse gets stolen, now they've got your child's social security number. I'd also be really careful about giving that number out. I am surprised how often we are asked for this. I had to register my niece for softball this spring, and I went up there and I filled out the form for her. My sister said, can you run her up there? I said, sure. Put in the name, address, phone number, what position does she want to play, what number does she want to wear, what's her social security number. And I left that part blank. And I turned into the desk. I asked the guy who was doing the registration, I said, I'm going to leave her social blank. Is there a reason you guys need that? He goes, I don't know. We got the form off the internet. So they weren't even sure why they were asking for it. It's okay to question that and not give that out. And as your child gets older and they become 10, 11, 12, make sure they understand they should not be giving out their social security number. Don't use it as your locker combination. Don't go on a website and someone says, hey, you can win a $100 gift card to Amazon by providing your social security number. We see that tactic used against kids all the time. But one of the best things you can do now to protect your kids' social is you can freeze their credit. This was not always possible before 2018. It really was a state-by-state thing. Some states allowed you to do it. Some states did not allow you to do it. Now it's required and it's free. I would freeze your child's credit. We will send out information as a follow-up on how you can go through that process. And then when your child does become an adult, depending on what state that age is, that credit freeze will expire. However, they can then freeze it as an adult. I did not realize how big of an issue this was. I've been doing these types of events in person and virtually for probably 15 years now. And I met a couple one night. They came up to me afterwards and they said, hey, this was really informative, but you need to spend more time on child ID theft, because I would spend 30 seconds on it. I didn't realize it was this rampant. Their kid went to apply for credit. He was going to buy his first car and he got denied credit because he had $800,000 of debt in his name at the age of 16. His identity had been stolen. There had been 28 credit cards opened in his name. And of course, the parents had no idea, because normally we don't think about checking our kids' credit. And the nice thing about doing the credit freeze with your kid is then you don't have to worry about checking it, because it really stops in its tracks what they're trying to do when they steal a kid's credit, open up more credit. So we'll talk a little bit more about credit freezes for adults later, but I wanted to just hit on this because, again, these are the #1 targets. Now, the number two target, unfortunately, is probably everybody on this call, and we are in their favorite season right now for the fraudsters, tax season. ID thieves love US taxpayers because to file taxes in the US is not all that difficult in terms of filing something on someone else's behalf. You need their name, address, you need their social. That's the one piece that can be a little hard to get. But we know there's a lot of big data breaches out there that involve social security numbers. And when those happen, a lot of times what the fraudsters try to do is they're going to file a tax return on your behalf. They're going to file electronically because they know that way the IRS has to issue the refund faster. And they're going to file as early as they can, probably in January. The IRS advice in this is we'll try to file your taxes early in January. Of course, that's not really possible for most of us. There are some things you can do. You can get what they call an identity protection pin. It's a pin you will get each tax season that is going to change every year to show that it's tied directly to you. But a lot of the ways that this fraud happens is people imitating the IRS. So one thing to remember is the IRS is never going to call you, text you, or email you. Sometimes these calls I know can be very threatening. You did not file your taxes properly last year. You owe a $2,000 refund. And if you do not pay this right now in this phone call, through credit card, through gift card, sometimes they'll say, we're going to come and arrest you. I don't know why, but the IRS cops are always about 40 minutes away from your house when you get these calls. Don't get bullied into doing this. I know the IRS may not be on our Christmas card list, but they're not that vicious, okay? They're going to contact you by mail, and if you do have a problem with your tax return, they're going to work with you. They're not just going to suddenly, out of the blue, say, we're going to arrest you. But that's how we typically see this done, is through these methods. If you can remember that, hang up, don't reply to that text, delete that email. And if you still have a concern, look up the number of the IRS office nearest to you. Don't reply to an email, a phone number on an email, because that's probably going to be a fake phone number. Look it up, call them and say, hey, I got this weird communication. I want to confirm that you have not been trying to reach out to me if you're concerned about it. Okay, so we talked about who are they going after? Kids, US taxpayers. That's pretty blanket coverage. Now we want to talk about what actually happens to your identity once it's stolen. This is the part that's going to be a little scary, okay? But I think you'll also find it really informative. Our identities are only worth, on average, about $12, okay? That is the equivalent of a case of Old Milwaukee. And as someone who enjoys a cold beer on a Saturday afternoon, it's a little depressing to me that that's all I'm worth, but it's just about $12. That's it, okay? And why is that? There is a ton of demand for our identities, but there's also a ton of supply, often through these big data breaches. And then what happens is when our data is stolen, it winds up on what we call the dark web. And I think a lot of us have heard that term, but what actually is it? And I'm part of a group called InfraGard, and I love being part of it. It's a partnership with the FBI and the public-private sector, including financial services. And I have learned a lot by being part of this group. When I joined, I thought I was going to just send in a little one-page application. Nope, it was 20 pages. They did a deep background check. I thought if they go through my college years, when I was 21, 22, 20, I'm like, I'm never getting into InfraGard, but I did. And it's been really informative. And one night, the FBI took us out on the dark web and showed us what it is. So when you think of this classic iceberg graphic, right, the tip of the iceberg that we all see and view and go to all the time is the World Wide Web. These are like ESPN.com to check out our favorite team's sports score, weather.com, what's the weather going to be this week, and hopefully it's nice in your area. We had a little blizzard come through yesterday. News sites, sites you go to all the time. You do not have to enter in a username and password to access this content. But there's a much bigger part of the internet that we also use all the time called the deep web. These are sites that do require credentials, and the content, once we enter our credentials, is private. Things like a medical portal. You work at a company, your company likely has a company intranet. The content on that company intranet is not going to show up in a Google search, right? You may use a portal with different vendors that you work with, your bank site, things like that. That's the deep web. But the underbelly of that is what we call the dark web. And so this is where things happen like child pornography, drug trafficking, but the biggest part of the dark web is the sale of stolen goods, stolen identities, stolen data. And our question to the FBI agent was, why don't you guys just shut this dark web down? It's not that simple. It's fully encrypted. And just like a lot of the internet, it's kind of everywhere. Can any of us go on the dark web The answer is yes. You do have to have a special type of browser called Tor. Is it legal to go on the dark web? Yes, it is. Now, what you do once you get out there might be illegal, but you could legally go out there. It's a little tricky though, because it's unlike the World Wide Web, it's part of the deep web. It's not really searchable. You kind of have to know what you're doing once you get out there. Fortunately, we did. We had an FBI agent who kind of walked us around. And I want to show you some of the things that we saw. This is going to be the scary part, okay? Dark web marketplaces. I think to me, this looks a ton like Etsy or eBay, right? I'm going out here to buy things. But instead of buying a book, a piece of art, a baseball card, I am buying somebody's credit card credentials. I'm buying their banking information. I'm buying pieces of their identity. Some of these things sell for $10. Some of them sell for as little, like a social security number, you can typically buy for $1. That's it. And you can kind of see on the views on these, it's not 5 or 10 people looking at these stolen goods. It is hundreds of thousands of people. There are millions of people out on the dark web every single day. They also have specialty sites. Here's a site that sells ATM skimming devices. These are devices that people buy to place on top of an ATM to steal your ATM credentials. So one thing I'd recommend is when you go to use an ATM machine next time, you're not going to break it. Give it a good shake. Are there any loose parts? Does the number pad flip up and there's another number pad underneath that's capturing your keystrokes? I have no idea how to hack an ATM machine. I'm not a technical person. But again, I don't have to be. People build these devices and sell them to people who are not technical. And all they have to do is get these things plugged in, and they don't even have to go back and get the devices anymore because they use Bluetooth technology to connect to them. That used to be the biggest risk to the cyber criminals, going back to get the device that had the stolen data on it. You'll see things out there, like I mentioned, like drug trafficking. That is a big part of the dark web. Here's a site that sells stolen credit cards, US cards, $40 each. They don't have the physical cards, but they've got the data that allows somebody to go out and try to use your credit card. This site, I thought this was fascinating. This is a site that sells stolen counterfeit money. You can buy $1,600 of counterfeit bills for $800. That's a pretty good deal. Netflix accounts. I could not get through the winter without my Netflix, okay? As little as $1. Stolen passwords. So whenever you read about one of these big data breaches, one of the first, and we don't hear about every single one because there's so many of them, but we typically, the big ones will hit the news. And what you want to do in those cases, I would always recommend going in and changing your passwords. You may log into your account, no problem. And when you look at everything, it looks fine. And maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Because sometimes when these accounts get stolen, nothing does happen right away. They get sold on the dark web, maybe 2 hours later, 2 days, sometimes up to 2 years later. And if you have not taken any action yet, then once that does get stolen, someone goes to use it, they're going to be able to. If you look on this slide here, it's a little fuzzy, the screenshot I was able to take. It shows feedback. They do leave feedback for each other. I bought these stolen passwords and they all work perfectly. 5-star seller. Highly recommend. Here's a site that sells services. I have no idea how to hack somebody's email, but I don't need to know that. I can pay someone to do it for me as a service. I want someone to put ransomware in someone's machine. I wouldn't even begin to tell you how to do that, but I don't have to know that. I can pay someone to do it for me. We saw weird stuff out there too. This is probably the weirdest thing we saw. This is a do-it-yourself home vasectomy kit. I have no idea what the demand for this is, but next Father's Day, maybe you go out on the dark web and find something for them, right? So the other thing that's fascinating about the dark web is they are running this like a real business. Legitimate US businesses are taking business practices from the dark web because they're running it so efficiently. You will see things out there like 100% satisfaction guarantee. Well, how can anybody do that? If I go out on the dark web and I buy a stolen credit card and I go to use it and let's say it's been blocked, I'm not going to go to the police and say, hey, I bought this stolen credit card and I think I got ripped off. I'm going to go back on the dark web, go to that marketplace and say, hey, I bought this card. It's not working. I want my money back or another card. And they're going to give it to me because they want me to come back as a return customer. They actually really value customer service. A lot of them have 24/7 service. Good luck if your streaming service goes out on a weekend or your satellite dish and getting hold of somebody on a Saturday night, right? They will do free trials. You want us to hack 10,000 email accounts? we'll do 10 for free to prove to you that we know how to get you results. And I think this is the most upside down part. You will see words out there like honesty and integrity. We're hackers you can trust to do the bad thing. We will get you results. We hired the best people. We guarantee we can do what we say we can. Okay, very upside down. So who are these cyber criminals? When I think of evil people, the bad guys, I think of people who wear masks. They're enshrouded in black. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. I live here in St. Louis. I've lived here all my life. I think of the Cubs. You can plug in your team's least favorite opponent and throw their mascot in here if you want, right? But these people were always kind of mysterious. Today's bad guys are not like that at all. The people on your screen are actual cyber criminals. And I don't think these people look like that stereotypical nerd in his parents' basement with tape between his glasses with a 80-ounce thing of, Coke. These are everyday, normal looking people. And they're not awkward and weird. They're the opposite. They're extremely social. They know how to interact with people. And while they may not be violent, I think they are extremely dangerous because they do not discriminate. They don't care what your sex is, what your religion is, what your race is. The only thing they want is your money. If you are a billionaire, they're happy to take $1,000 from you just as well as they're happy to take $1,000 from somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck or living off Social Security. They do not discriminate and they are ruthless. They will do anything they can to get your money. If you have any kids that are interested in cybersecurity, you may want to push them towards it because there's about 2 million open jobs right now in that space. And if you major in that, a lot of starting positions now are paying $200,000 a year. There's government positions, but there's also companies that will pay what they call white hat hackers. So they're paying people, try to hack our system, show us where our vulnerabilities are, help our employees learn how not to fall for these things. But it's very tough. These hackers are always coming up with new methods, using current events as kind of the next cover for whatever they do. And what we know they do the most is this, social engineering. So what we're going to talk about next is how do you stop these threats? Well, the biggest thing you can do is start recognizing them. So again, you're not going to have to go out and buy a bunch of software here. But if you can start recognizing and identifying these threats, you're going to shrink your target size way down. And that's what the goal of today's webinar is, to help empower yourselves to be safer and shrink that target size down. And we know the most common method used is social engineering. And social engineering is simply where criminals use our own emotions against us. They get us to do things we normally would never do because we are not robots. We are human beings. We have emotions. And they know that and they use it against us. If I met you on the street randomly and I bumped into you and I said, "Excuse me, sir or ma'am, can I get your user ID and password to your email?" There is a 0% chance you're going to give that to me. You may give me some choice words in addition to that, right? You're not going to do it. But what if you work at a big company, it's your first week there, and you get a phone call and caller ID says IT department, and you answer and I say, "Hi, this is Jared in IT. We've got a major issue going on. Someone's trying to hack into our systems. I need to get the credentials to your email account so I can shut it down." Are you going to give me your email credentials? I think there's a good chance you would because I put you in a very different position. I'm not giving you time to think about it. I know you've got some loyalty to the company and you want to do the right thing. You want to stop the hackers. And I'm using that against you. And that's what we call social engineering. The most common type we see is what they call phishing. I think nerds did come up with these words. I don't understand why they call these things they do. But phishing is simply where this is done via email. It's still the most popular method because one email can go out to 1 million people, right? And I'm going to show you real examples of these things. And there's a good chance you're going to recognize some of these. And again, if you can start to recognize these, you're going to make yourself safer. That I received. PayPal. I do use PayPal to pay for some things. And I got this email, and the goal of the email is to, one, get my attention and create anxiety. So I'm going to take action. And it could be pretty good at that because it's letting me know that my account has been suspended. That's going to create anxiety, especially if I'm getting ready to pay my bills that day. Okay. Now there are some clues in this email that it's fake. There's a couple weird wording and grammatical errors. It says an error was detected in your informations instead of information. There's not a period after temporarily. I think bad grammar, unusual wording of things is always a sign that something's fake. However, a lot of these fake emails we see now are perfectly worded. So just because something is perfectly worded doesn't mean it's real. But what they want me to do here is they're saying you just need to update your information. So that's going to give me relief. They want me to click on that blue button that says update your information. I'm going to click on that. Am I going to get a virus? Possibly, but probably not. I'm going to go to a fake website page that looks just like PayPal. I'm going to put in my account information, and now I've just handed it over to the cyber criminal. Where, again, if they bumped into me on the street and asked me for my PayPal credentials, I would never give that up, right? But they put me in a different situation. I love coming home and seeing packages. And I'm someone who forgets what I order sometimes. So when I see a FedEx package sitting on my doorstep, I'm pretty excited, right? And you've probably seen emails like this, and I do receive these sometimes. My package could not be delivered. They don't have the correct address. This package was too big to deliver to your house. That's really exciting, right? But these things are almost always fake. They want me to click on that link, go to a form, enter in information. They may ask for my social. They may ask for a bank account number to put a deposit down on delivery, things like that. If you really are expecting a package and you get some of these, contact FedEx directly. But a lot of times I'll get these and I'm not even expecting anything, right? So these are almost, I think, always fake. Here's one I got at my place of work. So at Focus Partners, formerly Buckingham. I got this email. I have one credit card. I only have one. I do not have a debit card. I have one credit card. I have a Visa Southwest Chase card. So when I got this email, it did exactly what it was intended to do. It got my attention because I'm being told my credit card is going to be discontinued. That creates anxiety, right? But anytime you see an email like this where it says you must act now, urgent action, act immediately, take action now, those are always trigger words for me because how urgent can something be if it's being sent to you in email? Another thing to look out for is the links themselves. Before clicking on a link, see where it's taking you. I was able to hover over these and I could see some of these weren't even web links at all. And they certainly weren't taking me to chase.com. So in this case, I did nothing with this email. I knew this was fake. Now, just like Allegiance, we have a lot of cyber protection at our firm. And I think the people you do business do as well. So why did I get this email? We have antivirus software. We have anti-spamware, spyware, things like that. Somebody said in the office when we did this for our associates, why did you even get that email? Well, there are no viruses on this email. So while antivirus software is very important, it's not a magic bullet. Same thing with our home computers. I have a antivirus software here. I do get emails like this at home. And the reason they come through is, again, there is no virus. They're simply trying to get me to go to a fake website and put in my credentials. So we showed some examples where they use anxiety and fear. Here's the opposite example. This one, they were using excitement. I have a buddy of mine. He's a professor at St. Louis University. It's a small Jesuit college here in St. Louis. And he knows I do this. And he sent this over to me a few years ago. And he said, I've got a great one for you that I was able to catch. I'm like, awesome. I look at it. How did you know this was fake? Was it the email address? He goes, no, they were able to spoof that. I go, that logo seems a little weird. He goes, it's not our main logo, but he goes, that's accurate. I go, well, how did you know this was fake? He goes, well, it says I'm getting a 12.5% raise. He goes, I'm a very mediocre professor or teacher. I'm a good researcher. I'm not such a great professor, though, in teaching. There was no way I was getting a 12.5% raise. And I've taken a couple of his classes. I would have to agree. He's kind of average, right? So he knew this was fake, but they wanted him to get excited. And it even says there, you need to access these documents or this raise is going to be canceled. Okay. So they use excitement against them. They use other methods as well. This is what they call smishing. So unlike your advisors on this call, I'm not an advisor. I've worked with advisors for 15 years, and I have learned you should not do business with banks that cannot find your account number. That's a bad bank. Now, this bank does have evening hours that are apparently open at 3:30 in the morning. This is a pretty weak attempt. So now they're doing smishing called text messaging, right? Simple messaging. This is not a really good attempt. But you know what? Someone gets this at 3:30. I bet if they sent out 10,000 of these, I bet 2 or 3 people would be like, bank needs my account number. I better get it over to them because I don't want to have any issues tomorrow, right? Here's some better ones, though. I mentioned I do love getting packages. Same thing, but now instead of email, they're doing text. I'm being told, hey, your package can't be delivered due to an incomplete information. You need to enter a valid address or you're not going to get your package. I knew this one was fake because of the very last line on there. The U.S. Postal Team wishes you a wonderful day. Baloney. I've had so many battles with the post office. There is zero chance they're going to wish me a wonderful day. So I knew that was fake. But again, if you're not sure, contact your post office, contact UPS, because you're really not going to be getting texts like this. And they know your address. They don't need it. Here's one I received saying, hey, I won a $1,000 Walmart gift card. Awesome. But why am I winning this? I did not enter any contests. I don't shop at Walmart because there's no Walmart near my house. So when you see things that you've won a prize, a lottery, a gift card, stop and ask yourself, did I even enter something? And if you're still not sure and you want to find out, contact that store. Don't click on those links. Is that a virus? Maybe, probably not. It's probably going to take me to a form to claim my $1,000 gift card, and I'm going to have to give up banking information, my social security number. Here's one where they do texting plus they call this vishing. This is where they do it via phone and voice. This is a pretty good one too, I think. So someone got this text saying, hey, we can't complete your online request. Your account is now locked. Again, going to create anxiety. Call us at this number. I'm going to call that number. Hi, this is Jared at Wells Fargo. Your account's locked. Yes, we did send that text. Yes, but I can't assist you. Can I get your account number? I hear typing in the background. Yes, Mr. Simpson, we've unlocked your account. Anything else I can do to assist you today? I say no. I hang up. I go to check my account. It's unlocked, but it was never locked in the first place. You should never be asked for your password, telling you to, your account's locked, things like that. Call this number. Those numbers, when you call them, it's going to say who they said it was, but it's usually, I would say it's always not them. Again, look it up. I'm sure some of you have gotten these where you're doing some work, or maybe you're playing a game on your computer and you get this bright screen starts flashing in your face, right? Warning, your computer is being taken over. You have viruses, you're being infected. Click here now, stop this, or call this number so we can put a stop to this. Nobody knows if your computer has a virus. And I've learned that nobody really cares, even if you do. I used to work with our technology team. Microsoft is never, ever going to call you. Even when you need them to call you and you've got an open ticket, they're not going to call you. Nobody knows this. And this is a common method, but again, it's going to create panic. And when you call this number, they are going to, quote, help you. They're going to help you by saying, we need to access your computer, do this, do that, so we can get access. And once they do get access, they're going to try to steal information from your computer. They're going to download viruses onto your computer. If you ever think your computer truly does have a virus, take it to a brick and mortar store. Take it to someone that you trust to have it examined. The other method you can do is what my mom did. My mom is probably the worst technical person I know. She is a great mom. She is not good at technology. And she got one of these calls one day that she had a virus on her computer. And my dad called me and said, your mom got the call today. And I'm like, oh gosh, what happened? He goes, well, they wanted her to get a file off of the desktop. But my mom thought they meant the physical desk she was sitting at. So she had these guys on the phone for 2 hours and they got nowhere. They got nowhere. My mom, I don't think she was purposely punking them, but she ultimately did. They hung up on her actually. And she says, these Microsoft people have very salty language. I go, Mom, that was not Microsoft. But you could try that method as well. I would simply ignore it, close that flashing window, and if you're concerned, take it somewhere that you can trust. This is a new one I just learned about. This is called quishing, QR codes. Sometimes you'll go to a place. I love these, by the way. When I go to a restaurant now, I can easily check out the menu. You can even order. They bring it right to you. It's faster than going up to the bar and ordering food or a drink. But again, cyber criminals are taking advantage of this. So I've seen these like on telephone poles. There'll be a poster, win $100, scan this code. You're going to scan that code that's going to take you to a fake website. I've seen them even on gas stations where the gas station does have a QR code and someone has put a QR code on top of it. So you just have to be careful about when you're using these things because, again, they found another method. So we talked about all these ways of social engineering. During the pandemic, this was the TV show I got addicted to. You can make fun of my dog, my family, my sports teams. You can make fun of me. Do not make fun of Judge Judy. I will fight for this woman to the death. I love Judge Judy. I became addicted to it. I still DVR it every single day. Us Judy fans, we call these Judaisms that she says all the time. My favorite one is this one, beauty fades, dumb is forever. I love that one. If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. I caught my nephew cheating at Battleship a couple months ago because he wasn't telling the truth and tripped himself up. And she says this a lot as well. If something doesn't make sense, it isn't true. And I think that applies to what we just talked about. That is one of your best defenses when it comes to these social engineering attempts, your gut instinct. Does this make sense to me? And if it does not, if you've got that, I don't know, stop. Because again, with all these attempts, what they're trying to get us to do is to take immediate action through emotions. And if you take a step back and say, you know, my grandson's in Mexico, I just talked to him 5 hours ago. He needs $5,000. This doesn't make sense. Stop. Think about it and then take the appropriate action by contacting someone directly or not taking any action at all. Okay, your gut instinct is one of your best weapons. I don't know if people here have heard of the Mandela effect. I think it's kind of fascinating. This got named after Nelson Mandela by a US researcher. She interviewed over like 1,000 people, and the majority of people she interviewed said that Nelson Mandela went to prison in South Africa and died there a hero in a previous year. But that's true to an extent. He did go to prison, but he was later released and became president of South Africa. And at the time that she did this, he was still alive. So why did some people think that he was dead? She named this effect after him, where different people have different memories of the same thing. Now, if you go and Google search Mandela effect, you can read all about it. There's a lot of theories about it. Some people think there are parallel universes and there's a rip in the space-time continuum, and that's why we remember things differently. You can decide for yourselves. I think it just shows that our memories, our eyes can play tricks on us. And I think that's what's fascinating about this. I'll show you an example of this, okay? I bet everyone here at some point in their life has seen the Walt Disney movie Snow White from 1934, okay? And in this scene, what does the evil queen say to the mirror? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Except when you go back and rewatch the movie, that is not what she says. She says magic mirror on the wall. 98% of people, including myself, when asked this question, say mirror, mirror on the wall. Why is that? I don't know, but we do. And this is an example of Mandela effect. So when we do this event in person, we actually have everybody stand up for this quiz. I'm going to show you 5 items. You're welcome to type your answer into the chat window if you want, or play along. When we do it in person, everyone stands up, and as soon as they miss one, they have to sit down. And we've done this probably with now about 3,500 people. And I think we've had 9 people get through these 5 things without missing one. And you've got a 50-50 chance on each one. But inevitably, everybody misses at least one. I'm going to show you famous logos, and I'm going to point out, and the difference is going to be obvious. These are not tricks. Like the color's off by 1 degree, and you have to guess the right one. So very common cereal, it's been around forever, Raisin Bran. What is the right logo? Does the sun on the Raisin Bran have sunglasses, or does the sun not have sunglasses? 1 or 2. So if you want to type in 1 or 2 in the chat, you're more than welcome to. You can just play along at home. And if you said the sun has sunglasses, right now you'd be sitting down. You'd be eliminated. This logo has never changed. You know, it's a little more modernized, but the sun has never had sunglasses. But I think 80% of people answer number 1. This is the worst game ever, Monopoly. I think this has caused more family arguments than any game, and it takes 3 hours to play. This is the Monopoly mascot, Rich Uncle Pennybags. Does Rich Uncle Pennybags not have a monocle like number 1? Or does he have a monocle like number 2? And if you said number 1, you would be correct. He does not have a monocle. We did an event. Somebody wanted to fight me over this physically. I'm like, please, you're going to kill me. You're 2 feet taller than me. And I'm telling you, he does not have a monocle. And sure enough, the guy sent me an email next day. He goes, I can't believe it. I checked our Monopoly set when I got home. And you're right, he doesn't. I think this is classic Mandela effect. I think we associate that monocle, one monocle, with wealth. And Monopoly is about money, so of course he has a monocle, but he does not. Fruit of the Loom, 2 very different logos, by the way, here. These aren't even similar. One is a thing of fruit, one is a cornucopia. 1 or 2, which one is correct? It is number 1. I think all of us, including myself, can picture that cornucopia, has never, ever had it. So if you're still alive at this point, this is usually either no one's left standing up maybe a handful. Starbucks. I don't know how people can afford Starbucks. I don't drink coffee, and thank God this would make me go broke because I think it's super expensive. But here's the Starbucks logo. Does the Lady Mermaid, does she not have a star in her crown like number one, or does she actually have a star in her crown like number two? Which one is correct? She does have a star and has always had a star. Okay. Ford. Everybody has either owned a Ford, seen a Ford, know their next door neighbor has a Ford. Which is the right logo though for this Ford? Does the F on the Ford have that cute little pigtail, or does it have a straight line? One or two. And believe it or not, it has the cute little pigtail. We did an event in Oklahoma City, and this was the first one of the 5 I did, and we had 250 people, and all 250 people missed it. So I've kind of moved it to the end now because when we do this in person, like everybody drops out. I think it's because we think of Ford as being tough and macho. And how could a tough macho logo have that cute little squiggle line there? But I promise you it does. So what's the point of that game? The point of this game is if we cannot recognize things that we see all the time, how are we going to recognize fake websites? People say that. I will know it when I see it. I would argue you will not. These fake websites are close enough. So we talked about recognition of these things. Another defense is things that we hate, having good passwords. If you've got a weak password, you've got a house of straw. If you've got really good password management, you've got a brick house. We know there are a lot of straw houses out there because these are the most common passwords in the last 3 years. These are not the best passwords. These are the most common passwords. If you recognize your password on this list, your first call to action is to change your password when this webinar ends. Why do people select these? They're easy to type, they're easy to remember, and we have hundreds of passwords today. It is very difficult to do. This is the only technical thing we'll probably really talk about today is I would recommend password management software. These are software solutions that allow you to store your passwords securely, have them create them for you. I use Dashlane today. I know one password. I know my password Dashlane. That is it. And we'll send us some follow-up information. When I started using Dashlane, I've been speaking on this for 15 years. I was doing things that I was telling other people not to do. I was starting to reuse the same passwords. I was creating passwords that weren't so great. So Dashlane and a lot of those other solutions up there, they're all very similar. The difference is just the bells and whistles. I get a dashboard and I look at it every month. The first time I loaded it, my score was only 83. Now I put an Outlook reminder and I check it every month and it's always 99 or 100. And if there's something I need to address, I do it right then and there. So Sean mentioned in the beginning that I was a journalism major at Indiana University. As a journalism major, math was my kryptonite. This was how I approached math exams in college. When I had to take 2 math courses, I crossed my fingers. It doesn't work when you're taking math classes, and it doesn't work when it comes to identity theft. If you're just hoping your identity is not going to get stolen, it's not a good tactic. There are some better responses, like things like solutions like LifeLock. LifeLock is better than nothing. What LifeLock's going to do is if somebody opens up credit in your name, they're going to let you know that and say, did you do this or not? And that's better than not knowing. They also say, and I believe them, that they can scan the dark web and search for your name, your information, if it's out there. I guess that's helpful to know, but even if it is out there, there's really nothing you can do about it. It's already out there. The best response, and something that everyone should do, and it takes less than 30 minutes, is freeze your credit. Because LifeLock and credit monitoring services are reactive. They're letting you know, they're asking you, did you do this? Credit freeze prevents it from ever happening. That's the key difference. I forgot, I froze my credit. I applied for an Amazon credit card. They must have had an amazing deal because I only have one credit card, but I guess it was such a great deal. I said, you know what, I'll apply for this credit card. 2 weeks later, I got a thing in the mail that I got denied. Why did I get denied? Because my credit was frozen. And that's exactly, I forgot I'd frozen it. That's exactly what should have happened. When you freeze your credit, you can always unfreeze it. You can, let's say you're going to buy a car. You can find out what bureau does this car dealership work for. Set it to unfreeze for 24 hours for them so they can run your credit and then have it refreeze. There is no cost to freezing your credit, and we will send out information on how to go about this. I recommend everyone do 2-factor. This is where when you log into a website, they're going to send you a 2-digit code. So if somebody ever did try to steal your password, they're still not going to be able to get in because they're going to have a 4-digit code that's going to go to your phone. Unfortunately, companies, your banks, social media, financial institutions, they don't default you into this. They all have it, but you've got to opt into it. And we will send out links for some of the common ones on how to go about it. It's very simple, but you've got to take action. One of the biggest scams we're in the home stretch now that we see today is artificial intelligence. AI is great. It can be very helpful for a lot of things. I use it to plan a party or send an email to somebody, right? In a lot less time. Unfortunately, scammers can now go out. They can see somebody, get a recording of somebody's voice for 5 seconds, and then they can imitate that voice. It's pretty powerful stuff. How do you stop something like that? So one of the things you can do is what we call having, and this is a very low-tech solution, but super effective, have a family password. So what I mean by that is my family has one, and I'll even share it. We don't use it every time we call each other, but if somebody in the family asks something unusual or they ask for money, the first question we're going to ask them is, what is the greatest baseball game we went to as a family? That's an out-of-pocket answer, and the answer doesn't have to even be exact. It needs to be about Glenn Brummer stealing home in the 12th inning. A third-string catcher for the Cardinals back in '82 did it. And if they don't have that answer, we know it's fake. We've used that question 5 times, 4 times. One time, my niece called my sister, needed money for class. She was going to switch a class. My sister asked her that question. She needed $500, and there was silence. And she goes, come on, JC, what's the answer? Sure enough, it was fake. My sister said it sounded just like her. She's in college, so the scenario was not that bizarre, but we stopped it in its tracks. Great solution that anybody can do. So get together with your family and figure out, what's the question? Make it fun. A buddy of mine, his family's answer is about, what is grandma doing today? And the answer better be watching a documentary about hippos, going to the zoo to watch hippos, something kind of fun that no one could possibly know. There was a company in Hong Kong that recently got scammed out of $25 million. Somebody from the finance department got on a Zoom call. This is very advanced, by the way, but this is where things are headed. The CFO's on the call. It's the CFO's voice who he works with saying, I know this is weird. We need you to wire out $5 million every hour for the next 5 hours. And he sees all the board members there. It was all faked through AI. Ironically, if they would have had that verbal password question, they could have stopped it. And that's what happened to Ferrari. Ferrari had the same similar thing happen, but they did have a verbal password. And the CEO asked somebody that question because he was asked to do something, and there was silence. And he hung up. And sure enough, called the person who they said they were, and they said, I did not call you. And they saved themselves $10 million. So simple, easy, tactical thing. You're be getting from your advisory team a really nice thing that's going to talk about some of the things we talked about today. This is a 24-hour checklist. These are things everybody in this call can do in the next 24 hours. Simple, quick things. You're also going to see a never ever list. These are things that I'd recommend putting this on magnet on your fridge, setting it next to your laptop. Because in the moment, these aren't always easy to remember, right? But these things should never happen. The IRS is never going to text, email, or call you. Don't write down or reuse the same passwords. Nobody knows that your computer has a virus, and never give access virtually to your computer. Don't skip past 2-factor authentication if offered it. Don't take online quizzes about yourself. I see these on Facebook all the time. What they're really doing, like, what's the best concert you ever went to? Well, they're really looking for answers to your security questions. Even if you can just take away this is a win. 2 red flags of scams. I don't care if it's the Prince of Nigeria needs $1 million or some very clever, complex scams. They all have these things in common. You're going to get asked for money, and when you do, it's going to be urgent. And or you're going to be asked for personal information. If one or both of these things happen, your antenna should go up immediately. These are always things that are involved in these scams. So your advisory team does amazing things for you. And I know that they have a lot of processes and technology in place to block them from being attacked, from someone being able to access your accounts. Unfortunately, nobody can do everything for you. You have to take control. The goal of today is not for you to start unplugging all your devices. I will admit this does look a little relaxing, but the internet, the digital world is awesome. We need to use it. We need to access it. But you can take control, as you saw today. There are things that you can do. Being more aware, doing that 24-hour checklist. Is it going to be a magic bullet? No, there's no magic, but you can't stop a company from getting hacked. But it's more likely you're going to be the one that's going to get hacked or be tricked and giving up information. If you do the things we talked about today, your target size goes way down. So I'm going to turn it back over to Charlie now. I really appreciate the time today. We'll see if there's any questions we want to take. And with that, Charlie, turn it back over to you.
Fantastic, Jerry. Wow. Thank you so much. We spoke prior to the call that not only from a cyber perspective, but also clients of ours get notes in the mail that are physically mailed to them. They'll get phone calls. And you and I were talking about the reason we see so much of this is because it works. It actually works. And so we've got a couple of questions, and I'm sorry if we can't get to all the questions in our time frame. If we can't get to them, we got some great questions. We will definitely follow up with everyone with a follow-up email answering some of these questions. But on a side note, my wife is also on this webinar, and we've decided that our security question is, who do you call if you get hacked? And the answer is Jared Hoffman. So thank you so much. I appreciate the insight. You've really opened my eyes. I knew this was out there. I knew it was extremely prevalent in all of our lives. And thank you for sharing that. But one question that I think really resonated with me, and I made a note because I have a 4-year-old and I'm going to look to lock his credit. But in the event that a family member passes away, in some instances, depending on their estate, it could potentially take a month or two or maybe 6 months to settle their estate. So would you recommend taking any measures around a deceased family member? Like, can their credit even be stolen? Are we even allowed to lock credit? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, this was a new one to me until 3 years ago. I worked with a client that, and again, these people are ruthless, right? You're dealing with a death in the family. Boom. What happened? They filed for credit in the deceased person's name. So typically, the funeral homes they issue a death certificate that goes some different places. In this case, that had not happened yet, and they took advantage of that, and they opened up credit in his name, and then she had to deal with that. So what you can do, and it doesn't have to be the spouse, have someone get that death certificate and then contact the credit bureaus and just submit that and say, or the bank and say, hey, we've had a death in the family. We need to close this account. I don't think that's common, but again, it is a loophole that fraudsters are looking to exploit. And again, they don't care that you're dealing with all the emotional stuff that goes with a funeral. They view it as an opportunity.
Fantastic. I've got another question. Obviously, from a proactive perspective, is it great for us to lock our credit? I mean, I personally do that. It's super easy to unlock if you get a new cell phone or a credit card or whatnot. But have you seen where it makes sense to proactively maybe cancel a credit card every year or two or three and get a new credit card number? Have you seen that that's an issue or
I
not?
don't think you need to do that. Now,
Okay.
I think you're bringing up something that is important, though, is that a credit freeze prevents new credit from being opened. It does not stop your credit card from being stolen and used. So if you ever think that's happened, and the great thing about a credit card versus a debit card is you can always get refunded if your credit card gets stolen, or whether it's the physical card or the data behind it and is used, you can get those expenses that were not done by you reimbursed. So I don't think it's necessary to cancel that, but you should always look at your credit card statement. Sometimes when they do this, they may make a 5-cent purchase to see if it gets noticed or not. So every month, just take a look, see if there's anything unusual. But do you need to issue a new one each year? No. But if you do see something unusual, you want to get that card blocked and reissued.
Okay, thank you. And we're obviously coming up on our time limit, but I have one last question. I'm not sure if everyone knows about this, and I'll kind of give the definition of it. But this question popped up, do I need to get a VPN? And a VPN stands for a virtual private network. Obviously, that's technology that really secures your encrypted connections on the internet, masking your IP address and protecting your online activity. As a society, as we use more technology through computers, cell phones, text, websites, so on and so forth, depending on how often you use those devices, is it important to consider a VPN by chance?
Yeah, so I would say most people do not need it, but there could be instances where you do. And we'll include some follow-up information. How do you set it up? What are the kind of criteria for whether you need it or not? I think the biggest thing, even beyond the VPN, is making sure your home Wi-Fi network is secure. And by that, we mean if somebody, let's say, a friend comes to your house and they say, hey, can I jump on your Wi-Fi? They should need a password to do so. If they can just hop on your network, that means you have not secured it. And you can contact your internet provider and find out how to do that if you're not sure. But typically VPNs, the only reason you might need that is if you're someone who travels for business a lot, or you do a lot of business from your home, let's say you own a home business, then it's probably worth considering. And we'll include some follow-up information. It's a little bit technical, but anybody can do that, and we'll include information.
Fantastic. Well, Jared, thank you so much for your time. This has been a great experience, very informative and very eye-opening.
Thanks,
Thank
Todd.
you for your time.